Radio Cairo presents House of Mystrey, a program produced and directed by Tariq Sharara.
Generally, it is the so-called frailer or weaker sex who are so conscious of the passage of time that they hear the knell of doom in the number 40. Generally speaking, that is.
Robert Holmes painfully crossed off another day on his desk calendar. 17 days, 17 short, swift days, and he would be 40 years old. Oddly, with each succeeding year, the age gap between him and Eloise seemed to widen, as if time were carrying him along and leaving her behind. Holmes had sensed for some time that she no longer regarded him the way she had during their courtship and the early years of their marriage. In the beginning, she had looked on him as being attractively mature, while now he felt that she regarded him as growing old. It was no trick of his imagination, the way he saw Eloise looking at the younger men at the club, and a number of them, young bucks like Ed Mathis, were not above doing something about it. She was closer to those people. Eloise, by some strange chemistry, was not aging as fast as Holmes. At 29, she had the appearance of being half a dozen years younger. She had beauty and youth, and, of course, she had money. By nature, Eloise was gregarious. Before their marriage, she had been one of the most popular girls in the city, full of verve and personality. Holmes had thought she would become a bit calmer after she was married, and in fact she had, but only for a year or two, until the newness of married life had worn thin.
That trip to Jamaica. How long ago had that been? 5 years. I still remember the night down there when Eloise and Buzz Franklin had vanished from the party, and neither of them had showed up till after dawn the following morning. There had certainly never been anything like a satisfactory explanation of that. But in those days, I had not felt this incipient aging. Then, I could still look in a mirror and see there a strikingly handsome, unwrinkled face. A hairline that had not retreated so much as a fraction of an inch. There was a firmness about my eyes and a square-cut chin. Now, incredibly, in those few fleeting years, time has exacted a toll. Not only is my hairline receding at an alarming rate, that which was not falling out was actually becoming grey. And beneath my eyes, there hangs small but noticeable pouches that no amount of sleep or moderation could remove. And in profile, my once pugnacious chin is definitely sagging, an undeniable precursor to a double chin. Is any of this happening to Eloise? No. She marches through time as if she owned it, utterly unscathed. I feel my insecurity imperiled. The only answer to my problem may be in Eloise's death. And yet Eloise has youth and appallingly robust health in her favor, not to mention that longevity was a family trait. This combination virtually eliminates all chances for a natural death. An accident. While that could be devoutly hoped for, is only in the realm of extreme improbability. I find myself with one sole possibility. In order for Eloise to die, I will have to kill her myself.
No moral or ethical barrier stood in his way. On the contrary, he would have felt no more pangs of conscience at putting Eloise away than he would have felt at slapping a bothersome mosquito. It was the old deterrent of possibly having to suffer the consequences that stopped him. For months he had lain awake nights trying vainly to concoct some method that would not leave him vulnerable. But since he was the only person who would profit by her death, suspicion because of any odd or unusual death would naturally center on him. This pall of gloom was pierced only when Holmes learned of the room underneath the garage. Robert Holmes's accustomed first stop upon leaving his father-in-law's office each afternoon was 1 block away at the Blue Goose Lounge. This particular afternoon, being no exception, he went into the cool semi-darkness and took a seat at the long mahogany bar. There were a dozen other patrons, and a half a minute elapsed before the bartender appeared before him.
Hi, Mr. Holmes. What'll it be this time? The usual?
The usual Dutch. Dry, eh?
As the desert breeze. Say, Mr. Holmes, you live out in Huntington, don't you?
That's right, Dutch. 134. A colonial house, back up on a hill.
With a tennis court and a 4-car garage?
You know the place?
I used to work for a fellow that owned it back during Prohibition. Jake Conyers owned that house then. Jake was the biggest bootlegger in town in these days. Probably the biggest in the whole state.
Is that a fact? Here, fix me another one.
Yeah, old Jake had a real operation going for him. The mayor, the governor, big shot executives, they were all Jake's customers. Jake took a lot of pride in his quick delivery. The customers would phone in their orders and we'd get the stuff out of the stock room under the garage and run it right to them.
A room under the garage? There's no room under the garage.
Probably been filled in a long time ago, but there used to be one under there. There was a trapdoor, I think, in the garage floor and some steps leading down. The door was on a spring, and you had to push a certain place on the wall to make it open. Actually, a couple of times the feds raided Jake, but they never did find that room.
Hi, Holmes boy. Boy, is he drunk. Celebrating, Charlie?
Wife's out of town visiting her sister. First time the old lady's left me by myself in 15 years. Dodge, give me a scotch. Say, maybe I'm telling tales out of school, but I just saw you're charming, bro.
So?
Well, this probably ain't any of my business. And if you weren't a pal of mine, I'd more than likely keep my big mouth shut.
Come on, Charlie. I don't have all afternoon.
I've been hitting a few of the bars around town.
That I can see.
Well, I was in that little place over on Broad Street, the Domino. And that's where I saw Eloise. She was with that kid by the name of Matthews. Eddie Matthews, I believe.
Big hunk. What a bastard. Hey, you're sure?
Look, Holmes, I've had a few drinks, but there's nothing wrong with my eyesight. Sure, I'm sure. Real sharp boy, that Matthews.
Yeah, real sharp.
At the dinner table that evening, it was Eloise who broke the silence.
What would you like to do on your birthday, Holmes? It's only a couple of weeks off, you know. You'll be 40.
You don't have to remind me. Middle age. It's coming. It's coming on fast and I dread it. Where have the years gone? It seems such a short time ago when I was up at the university, living at the frat house and having a ball.
Holmes, you haven't answered me. Maybe we could get some of the crowd together and go to the club.
I'm not particularly looking forward to this birthday, if you don't mind.
Why? Because you'll be 40? Don't be absurd, Holmes. You know what they say. Life begins at 40.
For heaven's sake, spare me the cliché. And don't act so damned smug. One of these days, you'll be sweating out 40.
I'm still sweating out 30. 40's a long, long way off. Still, it's nothing to be afraid of.
It's true. I am afraid of being 40. 39 still had a young ring to it. And then, suddenly, one day somebody says, "Happy birthday." And you're 40. And you're old.
Yes, she was smiling, a little secret Mona Lisa smile as though she knew something he didn't know. He took a quick drink of his iced tea and tried to dispel the feeling that had come over him, but it wasn't done that easily. The thoughts went on. 9 years he and Eloise had been married now, 9 years of the good life on her money. Even his job at her father's brokerage firm, more a sinecure than a real job, would go down the drain if anything happened to Holmes's marriage to Eloise.
You've been acting strangely, Holmes. I don't mean just tonight, but for months now. Is anything wrong?
What did you do today?
Oh, nothing important. I went out to the club and played 9 holes.
With whom did you play?
No one in particular, just some of the girls.
It must have been jolly to spend the afternoon with some of the girls. Do you suppose you could come up with their names?
What is this, Holmes? An inquisition?
He felt the anger well up inside him. He stared down the table at Eloise, and he wondered how she could lie with such an innocent, straight face. He was on the verge of confronting her with the item Charlie Freeman had passed on, but he caught himself just as he opened his mouth to speak. Suppose he did accuse Eloise, what then? She might even admit it, and where would he go from there? For all practical purposes, she could simply laugh in his face. No, this was no time for going off half-cocked. But Eloise was not finished with it. She slapped her napkin down on the table and glared at him.
Just what is this all of a sudden? You're acting like a peevish, suspicious old man.
Boy, how she's switched things round. She's transferred her guilt onto me. Forget it. I had a bad day at the office. Just forget it.
Holmes's brandy drinking did not stop with that drink. Each sip seemed to bring to mind some incident that suddenly loomed important. He thought of the Jamaica business with Buzz Franklin, and then there was the time when the gang went down to Sea Island. Something had been going on then between Eloise and Milt Cosgrove. Holmes was no uninitiated fool. He knew those secret looks, that seemingly casual touching of hands, those prolonged absences that went unexplained. And there had been the time right here in town after young Lou Ingram got his divorce. Holmes had been the recipient of more than one friendly report of Eloise being seen in this or that cocktail lounge with Lou. Eloise had always had a fondness for transacting both business and pleasure in the chummy environs of a cocktail lounge.
Each time something like that happened, I felt no fear for myself. I always said, let her have her little flings. She always comes home to me. But will she continue coming home? Youth attracts youth. Age repels it, because youth sees in age the inevitable deterioration it would undergo itself. And I guess they would rather go unreminded of that.
Holmes drank his brandy and his mood deepened. There was no forestalling age. He would soon reach 40, and 40 to Holmes was like a big swinging door. On one side was brightness and sunshine, on the other, darkness. He stared over the top of his glass at Eloise, sitting with such outward content as she watched television, while inside that pretty head she was probably thinking very hard of Eddie Mathis.
Something has to be done. Something that I will probably have to do.
The following morning greeted Holmes with a more than mild hangover. It was almost 9 o'clock when he left the house, and even though he was already half an hour late, he did not go directly to his office, but instead drove to the Import Motor Company. A sleek yellow sports car stood in the center of the showroom floor. Holmes had come in a week earlier and looked at the car. He wanted it so badly he could almost taste it.
Oh, yeah. She's a beaut, isn't she, Mr. Holmes?
She's a beauty, all right. Could you tell Mathis I'd like to see him?
Ah, you mean Ed? Ed won't be here until this afternoon. Could I have him call you?
Darn. No, never mind. I'll come back later.
Fine.
Outside in his own car, Holmes's hangover suddenly seemed worse. To hell with working today, he told himself, and turned the car back the way he had come and drove home.
Phew. Finally made it. The traffic was pretty heavy today. Eloise's car is not home. Darn it, it's Thursday. The cook's not home either. I might as well just go in and relax.
Words that rhyme.
Right.
Yummy and tummy. Okay, Cookie, some more.
Yeah, right. Okay. Cookies are such fun.
The customers would phone in their orders, and we'd get the stuff out of the stock room under the garage.
The garage? I wonder if that guy was selling the truth. Hey, that's an idea.
There was a trapdoor, I think, in the garage floor, and some steps leading down.
Well, here we are. I wonder where to start. I guess the floor. It is a trapdoor. I can't seem to see anything.
The door was on a spring, and you had to push a certain place on the wall to make it open. Actually, a couple of times, the feds raided Jake, but they never did find that room.
Can't seem to find that darn spring. Maybe more lights. Darn it. It must be somewhere around here. If I remember correctly.
And you had to push a certain place on the wall to make it open. You had to push a certain place on the wall to make it open. Make it open.
Darn, this is really getting frustrating. One last try. What's this? The concrete is giving way. Oh my God. There seems to be a hole. It's pretty dark. Where's the darn flashlight? Hey. There's a large room. There's a large hidden room. The floor seems to have hard backed earth. There's nothing around except that one table. Gosh, it stinks. Boy, I think I've got the perfect answer. The perfect answer, what I've been hoping for. The answer to all my problems. A few details to handle here and there, and my future is secure. It's Thursday, 2 days before my 40th birthday. The time has come. It's got to be now. Everything is ready.
Hello? Susan? Hello, darling. Yes? Yes? Me too. Yes? Oh, you don't say. Well, oh, yes, he's here. I don't know, Yes? You... Really? That'd be wonderful. Yes. Oh, no, it's possible. Yes. Yes. Uh-huh. When? What time? Golf? Oh, I'd love to. Now? All right. Yes, I'll meet you at the club. Yes, I'm on my way. Bye. Holmes, I'm leaving now. I'm going to meet Susan at the golf
You're
course.
not going anywhere.
Holmes, what's the matter?
Nothing,
You have
Eloise.
the oddest look on your face.
Nothing at all.
Holmes, what are you
Yes.
doing? What?
You're not
Oh.
going anywhere, Eloise.
Ah! No! What the? Ah! Please! What? I can't breathe!
Not anymore! You lied for
Please!
fun, you trap! Now you're going to come with me, Eloise. You're going to come with me to your final resting place. The room beneath the garage. You're going to lie there. I've dug your grave. The day I found my salvation. Keep your cool, boy. Keep your cool, man. Everything's going according to plan. I seem to look all right in the mirror. I better wash my hands. It'll take me 10 minutes to get to the office. Hi, Donna.
Hi, Mr. Holmes.
5 minutes late as usual.
I hope everything's all right.
Oh, yeah. It's 4:30 on the dot. Donna!
Yes, Mr. Holmes?
I have this stomachache. Could you try to reach Eloise? She could be at Gwendolyn's, Diane's, the hairdresser, or the golf club. You've got your choice.
Yes, of course, Mr. Holmes. Mr. Holmes, I tried all these places. No one has seen her today. This Mrs. Bascom said she talked to your wife this morning and that they were supposed to play golf together. But that Mrs. Holmes never showed up.
That's strange. It's not like Eloise. Not like her at all. Did you try my home phone?
Yes, sir. That's the first place I tried. No one answered.
Uh-huh. Today's Thursday. It's the cook's day off.
Oh, Mr. Holmes, how does your stomach feel now?
It seems to be getting worse, if anything. It must have been something I had at lunch.
You shouldn't go home if there's no one there.
Here. This is my cook's telephone number. Call her and explain the situation. Tell her to take a cab out to the house and that I'll be there within the hour.
Would you like for me to drive you home?
That's very generous of you, Donna, but I would hate to bother you.
It's really no bother, sir. You could leave your car here in the garage, and if you felt better tomorrow morning, I could pick you up on my way in.
20 minutes later, while the cook prepared a broth to soothe his ailing stomach.
Yes, Gwendolyn, but are you sure she didn't get in touch with you? I'm really getting concerned. I've called all over, every possible place she could be. The stomach pain is also getting worse. I really don't know what to do. Please, if you hear anything from her, please, as soon as you hear anything, let me know. Thanks. Hello? Her name is not on the list. I've called every hospital in the area. You're sure? Thank you.
You suppose she might have gone on a trip, Mr. Holmes?
I don't understand. Her car's still here.
Maybe I ought to call the police. When my third husband disappeared, that's what I did. And they had him back inside 3 months. Found him on a park bench up in New York, feeding the pigeons.
If I don't hear something within the hour, that's exactly what I intend doing.
Lieutenant Arthur Jason had been a policeman for more than 35 years, and during that time had acquired a certain phlegmatic equanimity. But on this particular morning, 3 days after Eloise Holmes had been reported missing, he glared over the top of his glasses at the man who stood across the desk.
People do not just disappear. She's got to be here somewhere. I know we've checked and rechecked every way she could have left the city. She didn't leave. She's still here someplace. That husband knows more about this than he's telling. I wonder if he killed her. That wouldn't surprise me one bit. But what did he do with the body? Could he have buried her? We went over every square inch of the grounds out there. Not only that, Holmes can account for almost every second. His alibi's too good. The jury doesn't convict people for having good alibis.
It's finally here. My 40th. Hurrah! But at least it's a nice warm day. And I finally managed to convince Lieutenant Jason to let me off. I'm going to spend a few weeks at Sea Island to get away from the strain of the past 9 days. I better get packing.
For 15 minutes he had been vainly searching for the diamond-studded tie clasp that Eloise had given him for his 39th birthday. He paused and tried to recall when he had last worn it. It had been the day he killed Eloise. He remembered dressing and waiting for Eloise to make her phone call. Later, he had carried her hurriedly down into the room, placed her in the grave, and then covered her body over. He had loosened his tie.
I've searched almost everywhere. It's got to be down there, in that secret room. It's the only possibility remaining. But could I have lost it later that day? No, that's impossible. It's absurd. I could forget about it. But no, that clasp is worth, God, $2,000 as far as I know, maybe more. And what if someone stumbles into the room and finds it? They'd find Eloise's body. And the tie clasp would be there. I'm alone. The cook's off. I'm going to go down.
He went out to the garage and opened the trap door. He had started down the stairs, probing the beam of the flashlight ahead of him when he heard it.
What's this? Sound of a car. My God, could it be Lieutenant Jason? I won't have time to get out. What do I do? I just close the door. I put my ear. I listen to them. God, please, not now. Another car. It just has to be the police.
Hey, Mathis. I'll wait here for you.
Okay. Listen, nobody seems to be home. The back door's open, but no one came when I rang.
Might be in the shower.
She said deliver it this morning. I'm positive of that. It's his birthday.
Oh, what will we do now?
Well, we'll have it where it is. It's paid for anyway. I'll go back to town with you, okay?
Okay, let's go.
Let's go, man.
And then, like a page slowly unfolding before him, he saw it. Ed Mathis. The secret meeting with Eloise. Birthday. And standing there like a poised missile just inches above him, the beautiful yellow sports car, with one wheel resting firmly on the trap door.
House of Mystery brought you Death Begins at 40 by Richard Hardwick. starring إبراهيم الكرداني, مها فريد, منار فوزي, هالة حشيش, شريف العطار, أشرف الجندي, أسامة كمال, طارق شرارة. House of Mystrey was recorded and mixed by Samira Mukhtar. Produced and directed by Tariq Sharara.